Good evening, everyone. I trust you had a fruitful day. I do not say happy. I hope it has been happy. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Buddha, the blessed, noble, and fully self-awakened one. Just hold this back a bit. So I thought we'd move on to a different discourse, but touching upon a similar theme with one or two things to be learnt, and then it probably takes 2 evenings. So the Buddha is now in the Kasi country. He's got a large sangha of bhikkhus, and he's talking to them. So this is what he said in the earlier discourse. So remember, the Buddha, he has to keep repeating things, mainly either because he couldn't get one or he didn't have the money to buy a digital recorder. So everywhere he goes, he has to repeat everything. So he says, I abstain from eating at night. By doing so, I'm free from illness and affliction, and I enjoy health, strength, and a comfortable abiding. Come, bhikkhus, abstain from eating at night. By doing so, you too will be free from illness and affliction and will enjoy health, strength, and comfortable abiding. Now, then he went wandering in stages until he came to the city of Kitagiri, which is still in the Kasi country. So now on that occasion, there were 2 monks called Assaji and Punabasuko who were residing there. And some of the bhikkhus who were there went to see them, and the usual thing of exchanging courteous greetings. Said to them, from now on, the master, the Buddha, the Blessed One, does not want us to eat in the evening, you see. So now the 2 bhikkhus said, friends. Now remember that the rule about not eating after midday was also established, you see. Friends, they said, we eat in the evening, in the morning, and in the day outside the proper time. In other words, we're not obeying this rule. By doing so, we are free from illness and affliction, and we enjoy health, strength, and comfortable abiding. Why should we abandon a benefit visible here and now to pursue a benefit to be achieved at a future times? So we shall eat in the evening, in the morning, and in the day outside the proper time. So this, of course, was mutiny. Now, since the bhikkhus were unable to convince those bhikkhus, Assaji and Punabasuko, they went to the Blessed One. They snitched on them. And of course, they told the Buddha that these 2 monks were not behaving. Now, they were naughty. They were very naughty monks. Let me see if I can get the note on this. It's 697, and I'll tell you what it says about them. This is the commentary, of course. So they were unscrupulous and depraved, and showed indulging in various kind of bad conduct that bring about the corruption of the laity. In other words, they had a bad example, and the lay people lose their faith. And actually, later on at Kitagiri, an act of banishment was pronounced against them, and their refusal to obey led to the promulgation of the Sangha Disesa 13, which I will read in a bit. So anyway, the Buddha does call for them to see him, and he asks them, is it true that when a number of bhikkhus went and told you about this new rule, you said, we shall eat in the evening, in the morning, and in the daytime outside the proper time? Yes, Venerable Sir. Now, the bhikkhu, he says, have you ever known me to teach Dharma in this way? Whatever a person experiences, whether pleasant or painful or neutral, wholesome, unwholesome states diminish in him and wholesome states increase. Okay, so the operative word is whatever this person experiences, whatever this person experiences. They say no, they understand the subtlety here. So here, the Buddha says, when someone feels a certain kind of pleasant feeling, unwholesome states increase in him and wholesome states decrease. And when someone feels another kind of pleasant feeling, unwholesome states diminish in him and wholesome states increase. So in other words, there's always this distinction between the worldly, the sensual, the indulgence, and the world of the spiritual life, which includes renunciation, but also the benefits of renunciation. We'll come to that again, I think, towards the end of this this evening. So much the same way as painful feelings. So some painful feelings, unwholesome states increase and wholesome states diminish. And when someone has another kind of painful feeling, unwholesome states diminish and wholesome states increase. So sometimes when we have painful feelings, these are based on a lack of something that we want, and it increases our desire for something. So that's the attachment. And but on the other hand, those unpleasant feelings we have when we have to relinquish something, abandon something, that toast in the evening, then that, of course, is something which makes us grow. And the same can be said of neutral feelings. So if it were known to me, unseen, unfound, unrealized, uncontactable by wisdom, when someone feels a certain kind of pleasant feeling, unwholesome states increase in him and wholesome states diminish, would that be fitting? So now he goes through this whole thing again, asking, you know, if I hadn't known this to be true for myself, if it wasn't something that I had realized, that I had found, that I had contacted, would I be teaching this? And of course they say no. So then he says to go through those different things, the pleasant and unpleasant and neutral feelings, which are associated both with the sensual life, the indulgent life, and with renunciate life. And one of them will bring increase in our spiritual benefit, and the other one will be decrease. So he says, all this is known by me. When it comes to neutral feeling, of course, it's a more subtle thing. It's the distinction between being indifferent and being equanimous. So sometimes we don't have much of a feeling for something, but when we look into it, it's basically a state of indifference and not pure equanimity. Now, just before we go on to the next bit, let's read this Sangha Disesa. So the Buddha is very concerned with the way lay people react to the order. I mean, obviously, the order has now become highly dependent on lay people. That's the closeness of it. Monks and nuns in the Theravada tradition are dependent on the support of lay people. So they can't work, they can't make money, etc., etc. And this creates a sort of dependency which allows also for a spiritual intimacy. So the lay people will come to the monasteries for blessings and for teachings and for meditation, and in return will, and out of gratitude, as it were, will offer the monks their needs. It can also be done out of compassion, because in a sense you could see monasteries and meditation centers as spiritual hospitals, right? This is where you go when you feel spiritually sick and you want to get better. So this is the Sangha Disesa. Now, there are different types of rules, but the most serious one is called a parajika, which means a defeat. And this is when a monk or nun loses their robe because of a serious offense. They tend to be anything to do with murder, or inciting somebody to suicide, anything like that. Stealing, of course, anything that a local authority or authority would put you in jail for. Any sexual misconduct, any sexual intercourse at all. And finally, anything that breaks up the Sangha, causing a schism in the Sangha, right? In the actual monks, in the community of monks and nuns. But then there's another set called Sangha Disesa. And there are 13 of these. And for this, if a monk breaks one of these rules, or a nun, they have to confess to 5 of the 5 monastics, the monks to the monks, and the women to the women, and then they have to stay apart from the order for 6 nights. And when I say apart, it really means that the order is not supposed to communicate to them, and they cannot communicate with the order. So in a sense, it's a sort of temporary excommunication. And the idea is for that monk to understand how important the Sangha is, how important it is to live in community. And then to get back into the community, 20 monks have to be collected from all sorts of places. And the ceremony then is to receive the penitent back into the order. So it's a big to-do, you know. So these 2 monks are the cause of this particular rule. So it may be that a bhikkhu who is a corrupter of families by gifts and flowers, you know, by saying that I'll do special ceremonies for you, that it's a wonderful thing for you to offer me because I'm such a highly developed spiritual person, and so on. And of bad behavior, lives in dependence on some village or town, and that both his bad behavior is seen and heard about, and families corrupted by him are seen and heard about. That bhikkhu should be admonished by bhikkhus thus: the Venerable One is a corrupter of families and of bad behavior. Both the Venerable One's bad behavior is seen and heard about, and families corrupted by him are seen and heard about. Let the Venerable Ones leave this abode. You have lived here long enough. Should that bhikkhu, being admonished by bhikkhus, thus say to those bhikkhus, the bhikkhus are guided by desire, guided by hatred, and guided by delusion, and guided by fear, right? So they're saying you don't understand the situation, you're all deluded. On account of such a fault, they banish one and do not banish another. Then that bhikkhu should be admonished by the bhikkhus thus: let the Venerable One not say so. The bhikkhus are not guided by desire, nor guided by hate, nor guided by delusion, nor guided by fear. The Venerable One is a corrupter of families and of bad behavior. Both the Venerable One's bad behavior is seen and heard about, and families corrupted by him are seen and heard about. Let the Venerable One leave this abode. You have lived here long enough. Should that bhikkhu, on being admonished by bhikkhus thus, endeavor as before, then that bhikkhu should be remonstrated with by bhikkhus up to a 3rd time, so that he may relinquish his endeavor. If on being remonstrated with up to 3rd time he does relinquish, that is good. If he should not relinquish, this entails initial and subsequent meeting of the community. So that's when he has to go and be to 5 monks. Now, if he doesn't do that, of course, then he has to go and find. Well, he can't go to that monastery. He's left. He's excommunicated. So it's not a pleasant thing to happen. So this is what happens to these two monks, you see. And I do not say that all bhikkhus, that they still have work to do with diligence, but I do say of all bhikkhus that they have no work to do with diligence. So here now there's a change of pace. A change of pace, I do not say that those bhikkhus who are arahats, those bhikkhus who've made the path, with their tents destroyed, who've lived the holy life, done what had to be done, laid down the burden, reached the true goal, destroyed the fetters of becoming, and are completely liberated through final knowledge that they have work to do with diligence. Why is that? They have done their work with diligence. They are no more capable of being negligent. Now, I say of such bhikkhus are in the higher training. So that's the ones who have attained the first three attainments, the stream entrant, the once returner, and the non-returner. Those whose minds have not yet reached the goal, and who are still aspiring to the supreme security from bondage, that they still have work to do with diligence. Why is that? Because when those venerable ones make use of suitable resting places, associate with good friends, and balance their spiritual faculties, they may be realizing for themselves with direct knowledge here and now, enter upon and abide in the supreme goal of the holy life, for the sake of which clansmen rightly go forth from the home life into homelessness. So here we've got some idea of what's needed in order to for our final liberation. So suitable resting places, well, that's pretty straightforward. But associate with good friends, Dharma friends, friends who are going to support us, and to balance the spiritual faculties. That is faith, effort, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. So these have to be sort of balanced. And of course, that's what we're doing when we sit in meditation. We keep our attention steady. The confidence, the faith is already there in the practice. We're putting the effort in to remain mindful, to be aware. We're trying to keep that steadiness of attention, and we're doing the investigation into those three characteristics of existence: impermanence, not the cause of suffering, and not self. So this is, although this is directly, should we say, directed to the monastics, it has great meaning also for lay people. That's you. So don't make too much of a difference between lay people and the monastics. Now, just this evening, it's just good to just think about renunciation. Nobody wants to renounce things because there's a sense of loss. So, really, we have to impress upon ourselves that this renunciation is not the destruction of the joys and the pleasures of life. It's to do with that relationship of attachment, of need, of compulsive behavior. And if we can tackle the worst one, something that we have a problem with. It might be, oh, I don't know, it might be eating, it might be whatever. I always say eating because everybody has this problem, one way or the other. And it's a case of just choosing something which you can see as a sort of compulsive thing. It could be just that one time in the day when you have to have the cup of tea, or in the evening when you have to have that piece of toast when you shouldn't have that piece of toast. Something like that. And just to sort of sit there with it and just to feel the energy of that compulsive nature. Now remember, there are two reasons why we indulge. The first one is because it's delightful in itself, but more often than not, it's because we're trying not to feel the underlying unhappiness. And that's when we start eating for comfort. We start eating to make us feel happy when actually we're feeling depressed. So it's a case of really beginning to investigate this whole business of indulgence. And as we let go of it, you see, to really feel that sense of release, that sense of relief from something which is enchaining us. That's a fetter. That's a little, should we say, indication of what it's like to finally let go of the whole damn thing. And that's the dropping away of this whole intention of trying to find any permanent, solid happiness in this form. And that's what we call nirvana. Nirvana is simply the end of that shacklement, the enshacklement of our indulgence. So the Buddha here is constantly playing with rules. Every time a monk, somebody or a nun breaks a rule, does something which is not, shall we say, within the monastic idea of renunciation, then you get a rule coming up. So it's very pragmatic, it's very organic. There's no, if you ever get round to reading the rules are all over the place, even though they're put in certain sections. And that's because they came as people didn't behave well. It is said that for the first 20 years or so, such was the caliber of people joining that there were no need for rules. They just followed the normal ways of renunciates, which other orders did, like the Jains and other people who'd left the household life, as it said. But then after 20 years, the standard of people joining seems to have dropped a little bit, and in this case quite a lot, and therefore rules had to be established. And the rules make the institution, right? That's your institution. The Vinaya itself is the institution. And the Buddha himself said he left two things, right? This is the importance he gave to the Vinaya. He said he left the Dharma, which is both the understanding and the practice, and the Vinaya. And he saw that the order of monks and nuns were to be, shall we say, the ground of his dispensation. So with that in mind, and the whole idea of renunciation, just to spend some time reflecting on what it means to renounce these these unwholesome desires, and to go through that barrier of letting go, to feel the relief, the release, and the joy of being liberated from a certain psychological need, an unnecessary psychological need. So I can only hope that this discourse has been of some assistance, and that you will, of course, through the process of liberating yourself from these shackles, will attain the great goal sooner rather than later. So we can do a little practice. Bodhan Pujami Dhamman Pujami Sanghan Pujami Namo Tassa